I've been meaning to cover this for a while now. Actually, it's been a solid month now, because the idea of a bow and an arrow as a weapon in Arc Raiders was just debated for a long time. And honestly, like, if you want my opinion, this is just like an opinion without facts. I do think it's gonna come. I do think Embark is working on this, or maybe some iteration, maybe not a bow, like a crossbow or something like automated. That would be pretty cool if you could have like an automated version of a bow. Nevertheless, because we don't have anything else but like a wishful thinking at the moment, I have actually come up with a pretty good, solid, I think, concept for this weapon that I believe is really balanced and actually would be fun to have in the game. Alright, let me start on all the different things that I came up with that I think would be a good idea, and we can all laugh at me afterwards, alright? Alright, let's start. So, this weapon is basically, it will be a gray weapon, which means the most common item, like amongst the most common items, like a rattler or kettle. Like, these weapons are just very simple to make. The arc bow, I called it arc bow because you need actual arc items that drop from arc. You can't actually craft it with like the most common items. You do need one blue item. So I feel like maybe that's a little bit of a controversial thing about this, is that like the weapon itself is not exactly worth the item, but I do think the utility of this weapon actually backs it up. So you can craft this in raid. It can't be bought from anybody. It can be crafted in the hideout. It can be crafted in raid, assuming you have the level 1 of the in-raid crafting skill. It can be upgraded in the hideout using level 1 workbench or gunsmith or whatever it's called, but it can only be upgraded to 1 additional level, so the max would be bow number 2. And it only can be upgraded in durability and nothing else. The shooting distance would be depending on stamina, because you can charge it up in a span of 2 seconds, and if you have maxed out stamina, the maximum distance the arrow would fly would take half of your stamina bar. We are now talking about fully charged arrow, and I want to make this absolutely clear. The furthest the arrow will travel in straight line, not in the arc.
He said it! He said it!
An arc is a basic physics concept describing the curved path of a moving object. Arc in Arc Raiders is simply a fictional
The furthest the arrow will travel in straight line would be about the same max range as the Sentinel.
This piece of shit.
The weapon can be found in any locker in the game, but it can't be found in the weapon boxes. Okay, so how do you make this weapon? You need 3 arc alloys, flex rubber, which is the rarest item in the recipe, and you will need 2 duct tapes. You can dismantle this weapon at any point into 2 arc alloys. Arrows for this weapon would be crafted from 2 plastic parts and 1 metal part. That is the most basic arrow you can make, but coolest part about this entire weapon and the concept is that after you make this very simple arrow using very simple crafting materials, you can use 1 more duct tape and combine the arrow with number of different things that are gonna be probably in your inventory, which is things like light grenade, snap blast grenade, blaze grenade, even showstopper, lure grenade, little smoke, stuff like that. Other things you can put on the tip are things from Arc that you can find from destroying Arc, which is Wasp driver, Hornet driver, fireball burner, even crude explosives, right? So why I like this concept so much is that the arrows actually, once the arrows hit anything, they cannot be picked up. They will sometimes stay inside a wall or something, depending on other things I will cover later, but you cannot just pick it up and use it again. You can be using this weapon in PvP, but it gets interesting. So when you are fighting a player, the arrow will do minimal to no damage. They will not even feel it. They will know that somebody's shooting arrows because it's doing very small amount of damage. It does less damage than like light ammo. The arrow will do effectively less damage than 1 light bullet to the shield. But if the raider doesn't have a shield up, or if it's broken, if you land a fully charged arrow in the head, it's instant knockdown. You can also use the arrows to shoot at arc-made rockets, you know, like Rocketeer is shooting rockets, Bombardier is shooting rockets, or bombs, I guess. You know, Matriarch is shooting rockets. You can use the arrow to actually collide with these rockets. Same way you can do with, I think, any ammunition in the game. Another cool part about the arrows is that you can actually shoot buttons with it. Like, you can shoot a door button and it will open the door. You can put the bow in a safe pocket. That would be the only weapon in the game you can actually put in a safe pocket, because it's a foldable weapon. You can actually fold it closer together, right? Because you have these two arms on any bow. Now, I mentioned previously, when you are fighting a player and you are shooting the player shield, it will do almost no damage at all. But if you are shooting arc with it, you will not be penetrating the armor too easily, but it will be pretty much the equivalent of shooting medium level bullets at an arc armor, which means that like 1 or 2 arrows into armor of like a small arc, let's say fireball or something, if you shoot 2 arrows into a fireball, it will get rid of the armor. Also, you can, like I said, you can improve the weapon to level 2, but you cannot improve the fire rate, you can only improve the durability. It will have a fixed cooldown between shots, 2.5 seconds, because, you know, your guy obviously have to every time reach for an arrow and put it in the bow, so that will not change. You cannot fix this. This is something that everybody will have the same. Another cool thing about the arrow is that, unlike any ammo in the game, arrows can actually have a big impact on the small arc, which means that it can actually send it flying. Like if you shoot an arrow at the smaller flying arc, or even like a snitch, and the arc is gonna follow you, you can shoot only 1 arrow and it will collide with a wall and destroy itself. The similar way shotguns work. You can actually use this against players as well. If a player is near a ledge, you can shoot the player with an arrow and it will actually knock them to the side, or, you know, in front of you or whatever. So you can actually knock the raider over an edge, assuming they don't have a shield, because if they have the shield, it will, like I said, do almost nothing. Another reason I think this is a great idea is because it's a thing that you usually will be crafting only in the raid. I don't really think this is the type of weapon that people will realistically want even to like deploy into the raid with, because it wouldn't be like super good when you are comparing it to other weapons. But you can craft this, well, not easily, but like almost easily. You can craft this in raid, and the reason for this is that when you are desperate, and maybe you are even naked, like that can happen, like you will actually be able to craft a weapon without having any weapon prior, and if you do that, you are often gonna be running away from arc, and this weapon is kind of like the last resort deterrent against arc. It's very useful when you are running away from any arc and you are shooting the arrows, because you can shoot an arrow and dodge, you know, shots from the arc. And the smaller arc will really not like the arrows. It will really be like, you know, stumbling around, flying around often, because the arrows do have like a really big impact. One cool thing that, you know, I just added because it's fun, you can pin to the ground or to any wall. You can pin ticks, because ticks are the smallest arc, and with enough force the arrow can actually pin these little things to like a wall in general, or like to a ground if you want. Arrows. Alright, let's talk about how the ammo works for this thing. Arrows will be only carried in a quick use slot, the same way you have like, you know, your meds or any grenades. And once you put the arrows in the quick use slot, the raider will automatically have visibly the arrows attached to backpack, the same way you see your shield being on one side of the backpack. The arrows would be automatically attached to you on the other side of the backpack. You can make any amount of arrows you want, but the one slot will only be able to hold 10, so the arrows will stack up to 10 at maximum. So how this works is that you can craft any different arrows with different attachments, with different you know, tips you want, The way it works is that once you equip the bow, you can hold Q, or if you're on console, you hold whatever quick use button there is for console. When you're holding the bow, you can see the different tips, and you can choose which arrow you want to take out of your inventory. This is super cool because it means that you don't need different slots for different kinds of arrows. You can have all the different 10 arrows in your inventory in one slot, and you can just pick and choose whichever you want, so it's really friendly for inventory. Original intention behind hairpin was that people who want silent weapon that is very accessible can always run off a stealth weapon. The problem with hairpin is that it doesn't do anything to anybody, it doesn't do anything much to players, and it definitely doesn't do much for arc. But arrow will be the same way except much stronger against arc, which means that when you are firing arrows, you can shoot it, mostly you should be shooting it at arc, because when you shoot it from long enough distance against arc, the arc will not spot you. For example, if you are in the outside and you shoot an arrow in a reasonable distance against some arc, even like arc like Rocketeer for example, if you shoot an arrow and you hide behind something and you are far enough away from the Rocketeer, it will not spot you. It will like maybe turn around and turn yellow and be like, you know, what's going on, but because it's so quiet, it will not know where to look, so it will not look directly at you, it will not start automatically shooting at you and know exactly where you are. Since it doesn't make any sound, the arc doesn't know where it's coming from, it just knows it's through damage. The base durability of arc bow is 35 shots. You can repair it with level 1 gunsmith, you will need 2 metal parts and 1 plastic part, and you can also upgrade it also with level 1 gunsmith using synthetic resin and 1 mechanical part. Like I said, you can only upgrade it once, so you can only put it on level 2, and bow level 2 will have total of 75 shots before it breaks. This weapon is a projectile weapon, obviously. Every weapon in this game is projectile weapon, but arrow obviously will be traveling significantly slower than any bullet. It will be much closer to when you are throwing a grenade or even you're throwing anything in the game. It will be obviously a bit faster than that, but the difference is when you're throwing anything in the game, you see the trajectory indicator, right? You will not see that with the bow and arrow. So when you are shooting faster than you are throwing, right? But the arrow will not have trajectory indicators, so you will need to kind of learn how to use it, adjust to it, right? Like over time you need to learn how the arrows are traveling and all that. In case it wasn't clear before, this is primarily like a last resort arc weapon. You will not be probably crafting it specifically to take down anything. It's more so that when you know that you are maybe out of ammo, or that you spawned with no weapon at all and you see the opportunity to craft it, you will always want to craft it because it's like a cool weapon to have when you have nothing else. But I seriously doubt that anybody would want to actually go into a raid with just bow and arrow. Like obviously people will be doing it because it's a novelty, but with time I don't think people will do it because there is just much better options that are much faster than a bow and arrow. But it's a cool little thing to have as an option if you have nothing. Like I mentioned before, it will be pretty weak against PvP. Even if you attach a grenade to it, it will probably be still viable for a PvP. But like I said, if you're facing somebody who has a regular weapon, you will most likely not win the fight. The way I see it, the bow and arrow would be probably the most useful when you really want to shoot a grenade or any utility like that at an arc, and you don't have like maybe the time to throw it, or maybe you don't want to get too close to the arc, which is that's reasonable. So you want to craft the bow and arrow just to deliver the explosive safely. As I mentioned before, you can knock players over the edge assuming they don't have the shield to shield them. I thought it would be interesting to make one exception for this rule, and that is if they are climbing a ladder or using a zip line. If they are moving vertically or horizontally like this, that will be the one time when arrow can actually collide with the player and knock them off whatever they are holding on to, even if they do have a shield. And lastly, my last contribution to this concept, I thought it would be a good idea to mention this, which I mean maybe it's even obvious to some people, but many people don't think about this. You can fully charge the bow, and like I said, in a straight line you will hit a target on the roughly the same distance as the sentinel can shoot you, right? It is also possible with enough training and practice to shoot anything, to hit anything across the map, across smaller maps at least, with fully charged bow in an arc, right? So it will not be a straight line anymore, but if you shoot under the right angle and obviously time it correctly, you can actually hit your targets across a very large distances, assuming you can pull the weapon far back enough. Alright, well, that's the concept that I came up with. I think this weapon should never be like anything higher than green rarity. For me, myself personally, I think it's the safest to assume this weapon should be the lowest grade of weapon, just because it should be as accessible to everybody in the game as possible, which is why I think it should be a craftable item. I'm sure a lot of people don't agree with it using a blue rarity item. There's two things about this that I would say, is that one, you will need arc material to craft this bow. I think that's the pivotal thing about the item. I think that's the primarily thing about this item that is important to be in the game. It should be something you can only get once you defeat some kind of arc. And secondary, I do think they should change the rarity of flex rubber from blue to green. I think that will be much more fair. It will be even fair for this recipe. Nevertheless, I stand by this concept, just throwing my ideas around. I personally am a big fan of this concept, so let me know about your ideas for this, if you like it or dislike it. Alright, that's everything from me. See you later.